It's Greg with B-17 Archaeology, and welcome to our YouTube channel. Now, this is the first video and also the first documentary we actually did, Starduster. So we are actually going to do surviving B-17's on our YouTube channel. And Starduster is our first video. So when we did this episode back in 2017, we did the full production on the video. Now we're doing it social distancing. So Greg is actually filming, Greg Jr., and we're telling the story. So welcome to B-17 Archaeology. It's a cool place to be. Now when this was General Ira Aker's transport plane, all the weaponry was removed. The bomb bays were actually there, but they didn't carry bombs. All the guns were off, because if you took the men, the ammunition, and the gun, it was nearly 10,000 pounds weight that was removed from this plane, which allowed it to fly higher, faster, and he was higher than the bomb squadron was. Plus, every time he took off to the skies, he was accompanied by a squadron of P-51s. So he didn't need the weapons, and it allowed him to do his job much better. So as we crawl into the B-17, a couple of important facts about this particular B-17 I want to point out. Here on this side, it is curtains on the window. Now, even besides the hatch that was put in as a meat hauler, it had curtains on the planes. Now again, the guns would have been removed, there would have been curtains here. The reason for this is where bunks were, so his staff had place to sleep and take a nap. So they would actually be able to close the curtains and be able to sleep as the plane was going from Italy, and to spend a lot of time in Russia. General Ira Aker spent a lot of time with the Russians, working with the Russians. So this is where the crew would have been, taking naps, a couple bunks in here, and there were no weapons. So this is kind of his hotel, if you will. So I have the privilege of sitting in the seat where General Ira Aker would have sat. This was his spot every time his plane took off. So if you can imagine being at 35,000 feet, skies are blue, maybe scattered clouds, I have a 180-degree view of the world. And down below me would have been the bomb squadrons from the Mediterranean Allied Air Force. As they're making their bomb run, General Ira Aker was not good 5,000–10,000 feet above them with the squadron of P-51s, either monitoring his men or he was flying to Russia. So what an incredible view this must have been. And just to be able to sit here and just picture what they were. Now, it's 104 outside, it's got to be at least 115, 120 inside here. But when you're flying at 30,000, 35,000 feet, it's negative 60 degrees. So a little bit different than what we're filming here, but still, what an incredible adventure. And just to be able to sit here, I'm just in awe on what it must have been like way up in the sky. All right, so if I was General Ira Aker, coming up from the nose, where I would have been sitting, I would come through this area. Now, when it was his plane, there was no bomb rack because he didn't carry bombs. Now, we get to the radio compartment, and it's still hot in here, but his crew would have consisted of radio operator, his staff, there would have been a navigator, and would have been the pilot and co-pilot. That would have been the crew on the airplane. Again, no guns because he didn't need them. That squadron of P-51s gave him all the protection he ever needed. A couple unique things about this particular B-17. First of all, it is one of 7 surviving B-17s that's a World War II combat veteran. The other unique portion of this is that it was sold after the war to Bolivia. It became a transport plane, and there was a landing gear failure that caused the crash. So the wing was removed, replaced with another scrapped B-17's wing, and it became a meat hauler. So for 25 years in Bolivia, it was flying back and forth over the Andes. Now all the cattle were raised in the highlands and the population was down at the coastal areas. So they would actually load this B-17, and the unique part about this one is they put a cargo hatch in it. So the interior was actually gutted. There was no radio room, there was no bomb bay, there wasn't anything in there. They would fill this with beef carcasses. Now there was so much, and they were freshly slaughtered, they had to punch holes in the aluminum to allow the blood to drain. So every time it would land, that jolt would leave red on the runway. So this is the only B-17 out of the 25 that were meat haulers that has a cargo door. Out of the 25, there's only 2 survivors. One is with the Paul Allen collection. It was an E model, but they took out the cargo door and put it back to its original B-17 side with the window. So March Field Air Museum decided to represent a true B-17 with all the turrets and all the guns. They have the cargo door, which represents its 25-year history flying over the Andes hauling beef. And then from this view you can actually see the curtains, which was part of the crew when it was General Ira Akers' personal transport plane. Now, the plane came to March on January 10th, 1981. The U.S. Air Force decided, and they found out that this plane was actually still flying, so they made a trade for a DC-6 for this old retired B-17. So on January 10th, 1981, this B-17 flew in to March Airfield here in Riverside, California, and the crew got out, 2-man crew got out. They walked up, they walked into the DC-6, they took off. At that point, this B-17 finally came home. And it sits here at March Field Air Museum because General Ira Aker was actually stationed in 1934 at March Field. So this is kind of a homecoming for this B-17. Now on our adventures and on our journeys, we have been able to meet some amazing, incredible veterans. Part about my job that's the greatest thing in the entire world is I get to meet all these World War II veterans. I get to hear their stories, I get to meet their family. They become part of my family. Once we interview them, we go to birthday parties. They're amazing people. Now I met one gentleman, Harry, who worked actually in the Douglas factory. This B-17 was built in the Douglas factory, and his job was the final inspection. So as the planes rolled out the hangar, he made sure that everything was good to go. So Harry was out here, and we had a premiere when we first premiered our episode of Surviving B-17s on DVD. He was out here, and I told him that this plane, from the time he was there and when this plane was built, he actually worked on this particular airplane. His story was, he told me every time a B-17 rolled out the factory, he kissed it on the metal here and said, "Good luck, bring our boys home." So when we had the premiere, he told the story. We came out here, when I told him about this B-17 was in his time frame when he was there. He was 99. He walked out here without the assistance of a walker. He walked all the way to the front of the plane, got up and walked, came out here, and he actually kissed the plane. So he said this is the only plane he's ever kissed twice that he's ever worked on his year and a half that he spent at Douglas. So an incredible story. We were all were in tears. Just the love and the passion that our greatest generation had and what they did so that we can be here today. So Harry, I know you're not with us anymore, but thank you for what you did. God bless you. And she's still here. So I've been lucky enough to be able to be in every single position of the B-17. Now, the ball turret, you're in a small spot, but you have the radio operator 5 feet from you. You have 2 waist gunners not more than 5-10 feet from you. I'm sitting here in the tail position. Now, some of the veterans we interviewed told me their story about being a tail gunner. For me, this is the most isolated position on the plane. I have no idea what we're going into. all I can see is the carnage and fire and everything behind me. And I got 2 guns, but if my radio line gets cut, I have no idea when the bailout bell, if that was necessary. Something happens, I got to crawl through a very small spot to get out in a hurry. This section of a tail gunner is absolutely brave to be back here. I can't say enough for the guys that were here. It's absolutely incredible. I'm so isolated. The sides are no more than 2 inches, 3 inches from my head. The bailout bell's right here, but who knows? I got my twin guns. I can only see what we went through. I have no idea what we were facing. Absolutely an isolated position. It's kind of eerie just sitting back here, knowing what my friends did and what all the tail gunners had to endure. Incredible. While we're here filming this particular B-17 takes me back a long time ago. Now, we did some family photos with my 2 boys. They're both 18 and 28 respectively now. Now, the photo here is when my youngest, Alex, was 6 months old and Greg was 10. So I wanted to get a shot in front of the ball turret because this plane was here. We have family photos in front of the nose art throughout the years, but it's kind of cool that we have the ability to come and do some filming, tell the story about the B-17, and interject some personal stuff about us in there. So this B-17, when we started filming this for our documentary series back in 2017, it was kind of a, not even an olive drab. If you picture Super Bowl party, the avocado dip is out there in the morning. By the time the game is done, that's the color that this B-17 was. So it was just a very ugly color. So went to the museum and talked with Jeff, and I said, hey, let me adopt the plane. We're filming it. Let us put it back to its original World War II colors. And as Jeff's eyes rolled back, he said, yeah, okay, with that little doubt in his voice. So I came out here, people came out here, and 130 hours of power washing. Now, it wasn't the power wash, it was actually the steam that took off the paint. Since it's been here at Marshfield Air Museum, and before Marshfield Air Museum, it was Marshfield Museum, it's been painted 6 times in 6 different schemes. So the paint was thick, the paint's been baked on here. So we went there, I reached out, Home Depot stepped up, and they donated all the paint. So the paint that you see, because this plane was originally a natural aluminum, the paint is so beat up, it's been sanded, it's been grinded, it's been repairs. We couldn't bring it back to natural aluminum, so we actually painted it. We used Rust-Oleum aluminum metallic paint. Now there are 4 coats on this, and this thing will stay shiny other than the dust for many, many years. It's an amazing product. We use it on every time we do a preservation project because of the quality of this product. Now, we buy the product, but we keep buying it because it's good. So, Home Depot came out, and on 2 different days, they painted half of the plane 2 coats. Next day, they painted half the plane with another 2 coats on that side. And then once that cured, we put 2 more coats of paint on there. So it's 4 coats of paint. We put the markings on, so as it sits, is as close as it possibly could be back to its original 1944, 1945, when it was General Ira Akers personal transport plane. So it was an amazing project. We had 70 Home Depot people come out, rollers. Home Depot supplied everything we needed to do this. We had a barbecue. We had 2 veterans out. My very good friend, Colonel Williams, who recently passed, and my other friend, Archie Aitchison. Now, Archie was a radio operator on the B-17. His B-17 that he was on, and before he was shot down the second time, was built in the same factory as Starduster 34 planes before this one. So when we interviewed him, he was actually in the radio compartment, and it was as close as he will ever get to being in his own plane. A 15th Air Force B-17 such as his, he was 15th Air Force, and this one. Absolutely incredible story. I do have his interview. I'll go ahead and post that as well. But this plane holds some very special family memories for me. So that's why I'm down here by the ball turret. I wanted to show the picture of the kids, and that was a long time ago, but it seems like it was just yesterday. From 1935 to 1945, 12,731 B-17s were built, and more than half of them were shot down or crashed during World War II. After the war, 1,800 were scrapped in Kingman, Arizona, an additional 1,200 in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, and an undocumented amount overseas that never made it back home. Today there are 50 surviving B-17s. There are 6 that are airworthy, but only a handful are flying. And 7 of the survivors are true World War II combat veterans. Okay, now it's playtime. So if you've ever seen the movie The Memphis Belle or any World War II documentary show, the bombardier, the navigator, pilot, and co-pilot always go through the crew hatch. Today, that's what I'm doing. So we're gonna go through the crew hatch. It's just gonna be like the Memphis Belle. So here we go. And that's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Surviving B-17s here on our YouTube channel, B17archaeology.com. 3 years ago, this is the DVD we did when we actually preserved this particular B-17 with the help of the Home Depot. They supplied all the paint, the materials, and the labor to help us paint her. So if you want to check out our DVD, go to our webpage, B17archaeology.com, hit our store, and you can actually find the DVD as well as some other stuff on there. Our next episode, we will be visiting Tulare, California. We'll be seeing Preston's Pride. Now, she's an atomic veteran from 1946, Operation Crossroads. So we'll be telling her story. And please don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, like us, and subscribe, and help us out and help us preserve history. So we will see you in Tulare.